All right. So, first of all, I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. Um, we're going to be talking about something that I am very passionate about, cooperatives and using them as an economic development tool. So, um, so, go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Mavery Davis. I'm a local certified public accountant. I'm also a community organizer, founder of the Financial Literacy Bootcamp, where we teach money management education for youth and the family, and also co-founder of a budding cooperative, Resolve Financial Services Co-op. Soon we'll be offering accounting, bookkeeping, consulting services focused on nonprofits, cooperatives, and small businesses. And there's my email address. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic.
Hey everyone, thank you all so much for joining today. Like Mavery, I'm super excited to have this conversation about co-op, something that I'm also very invested in. My name is Amanda Marple. I'm the Education Program Director at the WVU Center for Resilient Communities. I also lead the Community Economies Research Lab. I'm also a co-founder of Firsthand Co-op, which is a coffee company based in West Virginia that practices and engages in profit sharing into various organizations that are both in West Virginia and in Nicaragua. So we do some international solidarity practice as well. But I'm also going to go ahead and pass my mic over to Morgan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Robinson. I am a worker owner at Palante Technology Cooperative, which is a technology co-op based in Brooklyn, New York, that does in-person IT, web development, database development, and digital security for nonprofit organizations. I moved to Charleston last year from Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, I was also working at the tech co-op, but I was also on the board of Mariposa Food Co-op in West Philadelphia. And I was the treasurer of that food co-op for 2 years. So very happy to be here. I think now we're gonna go over the agenda that we have with all of you today.
Mm-hmm. So here's a look at our agenda. So first, we're going to go over, what is a cooperative, worker ownership. Then we're going to move into the development process. And we're going to talk about the impact that cooperatives have on the workforce. Then we're going to take a look at some cooperatives in action. And then we're going to get our hands dirty a little bit and do some small group work, and do some follow that up with some report back from the group. So in order to do that, we all actually need everybody to, you should have received access to a shared Google folder sometime between last night and this morning. Um, so if everybody could go to that shared Google folder, um, it should say co-op workshop materials and resources. And we're gonna go into this welcome and icebreaker slide deck. You all should have received edit access to that. As soon as this thing's stops spinning, we'll go over it. So a little bit about how we'll be communicating today. So as we're going through the workshop, if you have any questions, you can leave the questions in the chat, and we may do clockwise or popcorn style, or you can raise your hand, and if we have time during the segment, we'll do our best to address your questions at that time. But never fear, we will have a Q&A, about 30 minutes of Q&A at the end of this thing. And again, if you type stack in the Slack, that'll let us, or not, I mean, in the chat room, that'll let us know that you have a comment. So a little bit of an icebreaker. If everybody could find the thumbs up on your on your Zoom controls, and do the thumbs up or raise your hand. Can people do that for us? Let me see if I see anybody. Yep, I'm seeing thumbs up. So comment in the chat, help each other. If people can't figure out how to do that, let them know in the chat. Also in the chat right now, a lot of us are here from different backgrounds. So let's take a couple of minutes to try and figure out some things that we might have in common with each other. So if everybody want to kind of type in the chat, why you're here, and try to figure out some things that we have in common, and then we'll be looking through it as your facilitators, and we'll kind of call some of those things out as we see them. Got more people coming in. Let me. Thank you, Amber. Thumbs ups is under reactions. I see somebody from the California Center for Cooperatives is here. I'm also from California. I'm born and raised in South Central Los Angeles. Welcome. All right, so Superwoman Octavia is here to learn about cooperatives. We are looking at the cooperative model for future business ventures. Awesome. Great. So now we're gonna, like we said, we're gonna have some small group work at towards the end of the workshop. So right now, we're gonna actually get into our groups so we know which breakout rooms to put you in. So on the next two slides, I need you to find your name, and then you're gonna move it to a table that you like to quote sit at. So you should be able to like just pick it up and drag it over to a table. And for speed, try to keep your name at a table on the slide that you're on. So you might be on slide 4 or slide 5. And then also too, just a little heads up, be thinking about when you get into your small groups to reflect on why you choose to be here today. Like what was your motivator, and what are the 1 to 3 most important skills, experiences, or tools you'll like to get out of the activity. So we should start seeing people moving to tables. Let's see, are people having trouble getting accessing the and you can unmute yourself so we can just kind of talk right here if you're having trouble accessing this Google slide.
It looks like a lot of people are in there.
Okay. So you should be able to just hover over it like this and move it. There we go. I see some people getting it. If you also want to just unmute yourself if you're having trouble moving it, I can move you to a table. Everybody should be able to speak now.
Hey, Mavery, this is Denise. I moved myself to table 4, but my name stayed in the center as well. So I'm not for sure what I did wrong. I'm sort of on Kim's head there. So
Okay.
you want to move me over there?
All right, there we go. Yeah,
Thank
just
you.
go ahead and no problem. Just go ahead and call it out if you're trying to move it and you're having trouble. I can move it for you. Okay, we got one table with people at it. We got 17 people in here.
Jeff Kessler trying to figure out how to move me to a table.
Which slide on your own, Jeff? Let me see.
I'm on slide. How would
There,
I know?
I see you right there. What table you going to? Let's move you here with Kate.
Okay. Hi, Kate.
Anybody else? Call out if you need to move somewhere.
Hi, Jeff. I haven't seen you since the Hubs thing like 2 years ago.
I heard you're
Rebecca
working with
Yoder also needs to be moved.
Let me see, which slide are you on, Rebecca? Okay, I'm gonna move you over here. I'm gonna move you over here with Larry and Amber. I'm also trying to let people in. So if you just joined us, find your name. You need to open up the shared Google folder you received, and find the icebreaker, the welcome and icebreaker slide. And we're trying to move you in the tables for your small group. Okay. Well, we're gonna give ourselves a couple of more minutes to do this. I see somebody trying to move here.
Mavery, Boho Spa also needs some assistance moving.
Boho, what slide are they on? Oh, that's Olivia. I know Olivia.
Yeah.
I know who Boho Spa is. I'm trying to find your name, Olivia.
Olivia's on the first set of tables, I think.
Oh, there you go. There's nobody over here at table 3. Okay. All right. So we're gonna give ourselves like a couple more minutes to do this. Anybody that wasn't moved, we'll get you into a group. But yeah, this is just to try to give ourselves some autonomy, some choice in the matter here. A little bit of cooperative education in action. So we didn't want to just assume and throw people in groups. We wanted to give people a chance to sort of pick who they wanted to sit with. All right, so there goes it for our icebreaker. I'm going to get the slideshow back going. Well, first, let's go over a couple of ground rules. So obviously, the ground rules are going to be one mic, participate fully as you all just did. You all just participated very fully. So thank you. We want to speak from our own experiences. We want to respect each other. We want to listen actively, and we want to take a moment to have any participants come back here and add any participant rules. You have access to this slide, so if you want to add any rules here, you can go ahead and do so, and we will do our best to abide by all rules that we have come up with together. Um, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and move back in to the slideshow. And we're going to start off with what is a cooperative?
Hi, everybody. For the folks who just dropped in during the icebreaker, my name is Morgan Robinson. I work at Palante Technology Co-op, and I am going to just give a little background information on the cooperative movement, what a cooperative is. Some of y'all attended a workshop that the EDC hosted a couple weeks ago. So this isn't going to be 100% of the same material, kind of the elevator speech version. And we're going to get into some really rich engagement with how to run a cooperative business and what cooperative businesses are after I finish my spiel. Next slide, please. Thank you. So cooperatives are a global movement, and cooperatives have been around for a really long time. So there are all sorts of businesses, ventures, groups of people that can be considered a cooperative. In the present times, what it really boils down to is, are you functioning in your operations by the 7 cooperative principles? So the cooperative principles are stewarded by an organization called the ICA, the International Cooperative Alliance, but they've been kind of developed and honed over a really long time in the global economy. So those principles are open and voluntary membership. So a co-op is an organization that has members, and it is also a business that serves everyone. So to really participate in a co-op, you are a member of an organization. Democratic member control, meaning if you are assuming that role in a co-op, you have an equal say in the decision-making of that organization. So right off the bat, with the first 2 principles, like, you can tell we are not in a zone where most businesses in the US or even globally operate. So co-ops are really a special type of business. The third principle, member economic participation, means that regardless of what you are doing for your business, the members have both contributed something financially, so the members have a financial stake in the operations of the business, and also members directly benefit from what they put in terms of their work efforts, investments. That money comes in as a pooled resource and goes back out primarily to members of the co-op. Autonomy and independence means mostly that a co-op does not depend on or rely on outside investment or outside capital. And because you've removed that dependence, a cooperative can be very, can exercise a high degree of self-determination in the things that that business decides to do. And the last 3 principles are really more about community and how does your co-op, as this entity that is kind of self-sustaining and self-enriching, interact with the rest of the community and the rest of the world. So the principle of education, training, and information speaks to both the fact that to participate in a cooperative business, you have to have a high level of engagement. And in order to engage, you really have to be educated with what you're doing, the implications, making informed decisions. And because you have that investment and that stake in the business, that becomes really, really important to sustaining a co-op, that everybody has equal information so that they can move everything forward and no one is feeling left out. It's also a way that the cooperative movement perpetuates itself. So as a member of a co-op, I find it really important to teach others in my community who aren't involved with co-ops yet about the cooperative model and how enriching it can be. And then principle 6 is cooperation among cooperatives, which means that maybe my tech co-op needs some accounting services, so we would look for a co-op to give our business to first, like Mavery's co-op, before we went and hired someone else, like another CPA. And that is another kind of glue that knits the cooperative community together, is that we're always looking out for each other, and it helps perpetuate the movement. And the final principle, concern for community, basically just means and this is kind of like the thing that ties it all together, like you're not necessarily going to find, like some very extractive business being a cooperative, because by virtue of all members of the co-op, being in it for themselves and their fellow cooperators, we are also in it because we want to give back to our communities. So it's an important principle that cooperative businesses show concern for community, both in the way that they treat their members and workers, and also in just their basic business operations. Like, you're not going to find a very exploitative business operating as a cooperative and getting away with it for very long. Next slide. So the cooperative movement, you'll see if you study the history of co-ops, you tend to find a lot of cooperative activity in times and with populations that are kind of being shut out of the economic participation in various ways. So what's considered the first co-op was the Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers. This was the first group that wrote down a set of values and principles that they would operate off of. And then that list of principles became kind of the rules of the game for modern cooperatives. And what they did was they simply formed a buying club because it was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and these people were craftspeople. So they were not having access to, as weavers, not having access to any capital, and were basically feeling very exploited by their present circumstances, needing to pay for materials like food and very basic goods, but not being able to find enough income to actually afford those things. So they decided to pool their resources and buy high quality food just so that they could, share that and sell portions of it. And they reinvested the profits from those sales into the group, and as well as, using that income to be able to live a more comfortable life as part of this organization, more so than they could as individuals fending for themselves. So the Rochdale Society, while it wasn't necessarily on paper the first cooperative, and they didn't call themselves a cooperative, was really kind of the beginnings of the cooperative movement. There's also a very rich history of cooperatives in Black America, and Reconstruction was another period where Black co-ops really began to flourish in the United States, because even though they were not operating under slavery as workers anymore. They were completely excluded from most parts of the Southern economy. So the Colored Farmers National Alliance is an example of a co-op that formed as an alternative to a sharecropping model where these Black farmers would have been highly extorted and received very minimal wages. As a member of a farming cooperative, these folks could see, although the economy was still not very favorable to these workers, as a member of a cooperative, they were able to have slightly more self-determination. And in turn, this cooperative contributed a lot to the beginnings of the civil rights movement in the United States. Next slide. So cooperatives also hold themselves to a set of values that are just kind of a natural link from the ways that co-ops operate. But it's also important to, as a cooperative business, kind of check yourself and say, like, am I really living these values, as well as am I operating by the principles so that I can technically be considered a co-op? And those values are self-help, self-responsibility, democracy, equality, equity, and solidarity. So I think all of these values, as a person working for a co-op over the past 6 months, throughout all of the hardship and turmoil in the US, I have really felt the impact of being able to be in a workplace that practices all of these values, rather than someplace where the profit margin of the business comes well before my standing as a worker, or even my, my equality with like the CEO of a company as an equal human being. So really important values. We could get into this forever, but I'm gonna move on. Amanda is going to go through specific examples of worker co-ops, because we're gonna focus on worker co-ops as an economic development tool today. But I'm just gonna give an overview of what constitutes different types of co-ops. And the short answer is that regardless of the type of business that you, or the sector of business, the type of services, goods, physical goods, whatever that you're producing or distributing, the type of cooperative you are depends on the composition of who owns the co-op. So each member of a co-op belongs to what we can consider like a different class. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So the relationship of the members to the business determines kind of the classification of a co-op. So one of the first types of co-ops that people often think of is a consumer or a purchasing cooperative. And this is one in which consumers of goods make up the membership and the ownership. So in a food co-op, each member of the co-op typically like purchases a share of the business. So they will purchase a membership and then participate in like annual meetings and things where the membership body makes basic decisions for, whether the food co-op is going to open a new location or, do a renovation or, expand the business or kind of make political decisions like that. So the members aren't in there being the general manager of the food co-op. And you'll notice that because the membership is just the people shopping at the store, there's kind of a gray area where the jobs that are provided by that business may or may not, depending on how active the membership is, be the type of jobs that the members, they themselves, would want to see in their community. So consumer cooperatives are really prevalent, and they're a really great model. And other types of consumer co-ops are credit unions, in which the members of the credit union invest a share in that financial institution, and then they, by virtue of having that share, get banking services and favorable rates for financial products from the credit union. There are also grower or producer co-ops where the members of the co-op are producing something like energy. So you have folks who have solar farms or, you know, power plants, basically feeding into larger networks of other people who are producing that good, because it is economically beneficial to sell that good in a higher quantity. So Florida's Natural Orange Juice is one of the biggest producer co-ops in the US. Next slide. Worker co-ops are simply businesses where the workers all own an equal share in the business. So we'll get into, like I said, different examples of worker co-ops, but I also want to point out that there are kind of hybrid cooperatives where workers can own an equal share in the business, but that business may also be a consumer cooperative. So you have like 2 tiers of blended members, and that kind of doubles the benefit for the business. But basically in worker co-ops, regardless of how big it is or how different types of roles exist in the business, each worker owns an equal share, and because of that, responsibilities tend to be organized a little less hierarchically than in a traditional business. Next slide. There's also housing cooperatives where the residents are equal members in the co-op. This is a little bit different because housing is kind of a right and also a good. But as a member of a housing cooperative, you basically get a higher level of agency in your home than you would as a renter. But you also, there is less of the kind of speculative nature of property ownership that you would usually find in traditional home ownership. So you don't get necessarily full rights over your land and your home as you would, but to sweeten the deal, you have, you're sharing the risk and sharing the startup costs with other folks. Next slide. And finally, co-ops can scale and stack, so you can have cooperatives that are actually networks of other cooperatives. So it's a really flexible model, yeah, that kind of wraps it up, I think, for what I wanted to talk about in the overview of what is a cooperative and why would we want to engage with them. Looks like it's time for a poll.
All right, so I got a polling question for y'all. Give me a second, let me pull it up here. We'll type it here in the chat. Oops. You weren't supposed to see that. We'll move that for a second. So the polling question is, what is a cooperative? you should be able to respond to the poll. So we'll give people a couple seconds. You can log in with your Google email, and it should take you to this page here. If you're having trouble, let me know in the chat. Are people able to access the poll? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Somebody said too complicated. I think that's my answer. Let me change my answer. All right. There we go. All right. So there's our polling question. So Morgan was obviously masterful at explaining what a cooperative is. So I am going to move on. Did anybody have any questions real quick that they need addressed about that? Or can we move into the next phase?
Looks good.
Looks good. All right, so it's my turn now. Thank you, Morgan. So we're going to talk about the development process, mostly because I'm going through the development process myself right now. And let me tell you, cooperatives are not something easy to develop, but anything that's worth its time is not going to be easy. And when they're done right, you can have really good results on the other end. And unlike traditional business, you know, cooperatives are truly a development process, not only of like the individual, but also of the business itself. So a little bit about as we're, I want you guys to kind of reflect a little bit as we're going through the rest of this presentation. So visualize the landscape where you're currently at right now in your community, right? uh Consider what could be built there. Who would it benefit most? Who would pay for it? What issues would it address? What kind of jobs would be created? How long would it last? Who would own these enterprises, right? So as we continue to go through this development process, I want us to like kind of have those questions in the back of our mind, because I'm sure uh, once we get into the cooperative case studies and everything, you're going to be having some ideas about applying that stuff. But first, let me give you a little bit of information about cooperatives in the development process. So it's a very flexible business model, and as Morgan has already demonstrated, they can be developed in any industry. Education, finance, healthcare. You name it, you could have a cooperative in that industry. Um, they cooperatives address common issues that are faced nationwide, because at the heart of a cooperative, you have to address economic need, not only of the members but of the community. Um, and again, it's more than a business model; it's a culture. Um, and then the two most common legal structures for cooperatives are based on like state statute. So most cooperatives, depending on what type of cooperative they are, and what the state statutes say, you would form sorry about that, my slide must have been timed. Give me a second, let me move back. technical difficulties. But basically, you know, you're gonna develop under the state statute or as an LLC, because again, you're really a cooperative based on your principles and how you operate. They're flexible in startup. You could have a few people start a cooperative, or you can have something huge, you know, like REI or something like that. So again, the appealing components are that they are user owned, user controlled, and user benefited. Um, and it could also, cooperatives can also be a remedy, as we'll see in one of the case studies, for the business succession problem. Like when certain businesses may be going out of business, or maybe the industry isn't profitable enough for the current owners. A cooperative can be a remedy to transfer ownership to the employees, like they did with New Era Windows, and have great success. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then the key thing here is there are very specific steps to startup of a cooperative. There are 4 basic phases, which we will go through, and 12 steps. You don't necessarily have to do all the steps in order, but to develop a cooperative properly, you have to hit all 12 of the steps. And I can speak from that personally. You know, we've moved through several different phases of it. So, and you also want to research, you know, co-op development centers, and you want to learn how to form a steering committee, and understand that there are unique legal and accounting issues related to cooperatives. Um, a really big component of starting a cooperative and developing one is that they are self-capitalized. Sorry about that. So, you know, a member and community buy-in is really key. That might look like selling shares, members putting cash in, or what is called sweat equity. Because, you know, everybody starting a cooperative is a owner of that business. So it's really important that buy-in is done in some form or fashion. And because it's flexible, that buy-in can look very different, and you have some flexibility in doing that. But it's very important that you have that member buy-in, the owner buy-in. And then you also want to diversify your funding sources to avoid being undercapitalized. So one of the ways you can do that is you can there's financing that is specific to cooperatives. Seed Commons is a cooperative, is a national network of locally rooted non-extractive loan funds that bring the power of finance under community control. So they have different grassroots loan fund, 25 plus loan funds throughout the U.S. And they've given out 100 plus loans, and about $7.8 million invested in these projects. And some of the projects that you will see in the case study were actually invested in by Seed Commons. Then you also have organizations like Shared Capital, which is, again, it's headquartered in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it's a national loan fund as well. So in 2019, Shared Capital's impact included $4.1 million in loans made to 15 co-ops. So if you notice a trend here, like when co-op development institutions go in to support co-ops, they do their best to support them fully. And so you're going to largely see when one of these organizations are supporting the co-op, they are supporting it as full as they can. As you can see, they gave out $4.1 million to 15 co-ops. So 71% of lending to co-ops by and for women, people, and people of color and low-income communities. They created 1,781 jobs and maintained. Sorry about that. And then they have 260 co-op members and 100 individual members. And this was just their 2019 impact. That's not the whole life of this organization's activity. That's just what they did in 2019. So again, we talked about the development process having 4 specific steps. The first step is identifying, determining the economic need. Do we have some questions? Okay, so determining the economic need. So that's basically step 1. So your leaders or your group of folks that want to start this co-ops are going to meet to discuss the issues, to determine if there's an economic need, and then they're going to follow that up by holding an exploratory meeting to figure out who should be on the steering committee. And your steering committee could look different depending on who the co-op is supposed to be focused on. If it's something that's more community facing, or a larger type co-op that's going to be built, then your steering committee might look like a collection of community members or community leaders or organizations. And if it's a specific co-op, say for example a group of accountants, then your steering committee would have a few accountants or CPAs on it, and that would be the ideal steering committee. And then you're going to deliberate is phase 2. Then phase 2, and your deliberation, you want to do something where you are conducting a member use analysis and an initial market study. And when you're doing a member use analysis, you're really trying to figure out what are all of the things that your members want and what they need, because that's going to inform your business planning, right? Are the members looking to have higher wages? Are they looking to have like their daycare taken care of? Different things like that. And then you also have to analyze the market. And then a sub step of that is you want to hold a second exploratory meeting to see if people are still interested. And then you also want to have these member use analysis and initial market studies done by professionals. So again, that's why you want to contact the Cooperative Development Center to help you figure out, where the best place to get one of these done by a professional in terms of cooperatives. And then following that, you want to conduct a feasibility study. And so your member use analysis and your initial market analysis is going to inform the feasibility study, which is really going to go deep into really what this cooperative is, who's it going to serve, how many jobs is it supposed to create, what are the profits looking like. It's going to go really deep into that. And then you're going to hold another exploratory meeting to basically present the findings of this feasibility study to your steering committee, to the members. That is, you're going to present this feasibility study to the members, and then you're going to decide after looking at all the facts of the situation whether or not it's appropriate to move forward. And then at that point, you want to prepare a business plan. Again, some of these steps you might end up doing them out of order, but you must do them all. And then the next phase is, the third phase is implementation. So once you have your business plan, you want to get legal counsel to to draft a complete set of legal paper, your articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and we can have whole workshops on all of that stuff. And then you're going to do another meeting with your membership, the people who are expected to be a part of your co-op, to review the legal papers and approve them. And then you're going to file those papers and hold your first meeting as a cooperative. The final phase is execute. So you're going to convene your first board of directors meeting, which may or may not be the same individuals that were on the steering committee. It just depends on how the membership votes. Then you want to go into fundraising. So you want to hold some type of membership drive to raise funding from your members. Then you want to acquire step 10, acquire capital. So again, you're going to be looking for places based on like your feasibility study. If you need loans, you're going to be looking for places like Seed Commons or Shared Capital to reach out to. There's also grants and other things that you can get to develop a cooperative. And then you want to hire a manager and buy the equipment and get rolling. Now, I know that's a lot, right? But if all of these steps are followed and if all of the process is done thoroughly, and even more than that, the proper cooperative culture is built is built throughout this development process, cooperatives can and do have a very significant impact on the workforce. And so to demonstrate that, we're going to look at the 2019 worker cooperatives in the United States. This is covering 6 years of business progress. The 2019 Worker Cooperative State of the Sector is a report on worker-owned businesses in the United States. So this report is a co-production of the Democracy at Work Institute and the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. So the first report talks about equity in worker cooperatives. So what we're talking about here is like wealth building, that type of equity. So the average wage paid at all reporting worker cooperatives was $19.67. That's well above the minimum wage. I think that's above above wages in most places. So this figure is more than $7 higher than the minimum wage in 13 states with the most worker co-ops. And then also you have patronage. And this is money that's actually paid out. When it's patronage, that means that they, and Morgan can correct me on that, but when it's patronage, that means that they actually, these worker owners actually received this return of capital at the end of the year when they were paid out. So the pay ratio is 2 to 1 in the average worker cooperative, whereas in the larger economy, the pay ratio is 303 to 1. So one of the major problems in the wealth gap. So you can see here that there's a lot more potential for equity when you're dealing with co-ops, and not only economic equity, but also social equity. Looking at this graph here, you can see that worker co-ops are 37.9% Latinx, 12.7% Black, 6.2% other, a lot more representative of the larger economy, a lot more inclusive, 62.5% female, 35.8% male. And so, there's a lot more equity in terms of social social impacts as well. So when looking at these statistics, how do these results reconcile with what we see here locally in our community, right? Are we seeing jobs where folks are, um, sorry, I had to admit somebody. Are we seeing jobs where people are potentially making, $7 higher than the minimum wage and also getting a return of capital? And not only that, are we seeing opportunities where we can maybe create some things like that? Um, and our current mainstream methods of developing the workforce sustainable long term, given the current economic environment? Those are some of the questions that I ask myself when I'm studying co-ops. Um, so um, here's some results from a workforce e-survey. Now, this was a survey done by a very small group of participants, but I think it speaks to some of the responses here. It speaks to um, some of the things that cooperatives could bring to our communities, right? So this survey found that you know people lacked some of the skills they needed to be involved in the workforce, right? So they needed more examples in their homes and neighborhood. People asked for more knowledge of availability. Um, uh, People wanted to know if there were ways that organizations could not work in silos so much and not work together. I mean, and learn how to work together, right? So, like the responses in this survey kind of spoke to the fact that maybe people may be interested in the cooperative business model. And then that also raises the question: can good values be good business too? That's what they asked in this survey of worker co-ops. So for generations, the cooperative movement has been answering with a resounding yes. And here's a snapshot of the worker co-op sectors. There's 465 known worker co-ops, an estimated 6,454 workers, and 505 million in revenues that those about 6,500 workers get to share in, and that's pretty good. Um, as far as a solution for startups and business exits, the rate of new startups each year remains steady at about 25 new firms per year, while the number of businesses that have converted to employee ownership has grown slightly. So what this is saying is that more people are starting to look at co-ops as a solution to business startups. And so again, these are established in a variety of industries. You got childcare, professional services, retail, and home care. And this survey also included 415 worker cooperatives verified operational in 2018 and 50 Puerto Rican worker cooperatives. So, it's a tried and tested model. And it provides stability. So this is one of the most amazing statistics I like to look at. So after 6 to 10 years, worker co-op models are still sustainable in existence 25.6% of the time. And after 26 years, 14.7%. Those numbers, by comparison, U.S. small businesses that are 6 to 10 years old have an 18.7% success rate, right? And those older than 26 years have an 11.9% success rate. So, when co-ops are developed properly and done right, they have a tendency to last and be more sustainable than traditional business models. And also, but co-ops are businesses just like any other businesses. So this year was the first time that they asked in the survey what were some of the challenges that they have. And just like developing any business, it's going to be tough to figure out how to pay for health insurance, how to get all kinds of other worker benefits, administrative burdens, business planning, legal. But again, that's why there are cooperative development centers and other institutions and organizations that folks developing co-ops can reach out to for assistance. And that's also why co-ops, a lot of these challenges are why people come together and form co-ops to help them overcome them. Nonetheless, like there's still challenges. So this is just a little chart here to kind of show you guys that where there's like a concentration of worker co-ops at. So the pink dots indicate a region with a concentration of 5 or more worker cooperatives. So you can see where most of them are kind of towards the Midwest to the East Coast. And then the blue dots are regions where there's a concentration of 5 or more worker cooperatives, as well as a workers to owner collaborator. And so these workers to owner members focus on converting businesses from a traditional structure to employee ownership. So, there's resources out there to help people convert to the co-op model. So now we got polling question number 2. Let me see if I can grab the question for you all. Okay, folks want to try to respond to the survey or the polling question?
Mavery, can you drop the link in the chat again?
Oh, I put it in private. Sorry.
No.
Sorry about that. It's a different link to respond to this question. So what do cooperative business models or why do cooperative business models tend to have a higher success rates than traditional businesses? So let's see what the results are. So staff members are paid more fairly and have a say in where profits go. We got some thinking it's all 3. Okay, now the answer is actually all 3. It is stronger culture and values, more people involved from startup through operation. Because, by definition, if it's a co-op, you're going to have at least a few members. And then staff members are paid more fairly and have a say in where profits go. Thank you for participating there. So let me restart the slideshow and we're going to pass it over to Amanda.
Hey again, folks. So I'm going to dive into just a few examples, and I'm probably going to run through relatively quickly just so we can catch up a little bit on time. All of these examples are also going to be provided in a resource page that we will allow you all access to. I think you already have access to it. So there's a lot of rich information on that page if you're wanting to learn more and I don't cover necessarily what it is that you're wanting to know. I also want to preface in this section that these examples are nationwide, but cooperative models can be used to adapt to community needs in any community, whether that be small or large. And I also want to note that there's a recognition, throughout this and these examples, you can see that a lot of these co-ops also started in 2008 or right after 2008, after the financial collapse in the United States. And to Morgan's point earlier, I think this is also a really highlighted example of how throughout cooperative history and throughout the cooperative movement, we see co-ops forming, particularly after crises and particularly amongst marginalized groups that are left out of the economic and social process. So co-ops are really powerful tools also for obviously collective power and being able to carve out space in spaces that are either not welcoming or spaces that are not necessarily developed yet for folks. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in. We can go to the next slide. Thanks, Mavery.
Okay.
So the first example of a cooperative is New Era Windows based in Chicago, Illinois. There's a video here, but we're going to skip that right now. And again, these resources are in a page or in that resource link. But this is a really interesting example and one of the, I believe, the first financial loan projects of the working world in the United States as well. And we can talk about the working world a little bit later. They're a microfinance loan organization based out of New York and two other in Nicaragua and Argentina. But after two transitions of ownerships, the workers at New Era Windows decided that it was time for them to take over ownership of the place that they had worked. Most of them had worked for a very long time. And in this video here, you can hear Melvin Ricky Macklin say that we were tired of our lives being in someone else's hands. So again, after the 2008 financial collapse, I believe it was Republic Windows and Doors laid off all of their workers. The workers then occupied the factory for a period of time, and a new company bought the factory called Sirius Energy, which was supposed to be a company that was going to be doing windows and doors as well, but in a green kind of setting. They also wound up shutting down. So after that second company had taken over and shut down the factory, the workers decided it was time for them to take over ownership of that factory. So in 2012, New Era came to life as a worker-owned cooperative. And throughout that process, workers were not only just window and door manufacturers, but they also became bookkeepers, they became managers, they became their own internal accountants. They were doing, HR. So it was also this aspect in many worker cooperatives, in all worker cooperatives, there is this participation in other aspects of the job, such as HR and open book financing and various things like that. We can go to the next slide. The next slide that we're going to, or the next example that we're going to go, also, sorry, I want to pause and wind up and back up a little bit. These examples are also going to be shown and are reflective of some of those questions that were in the workforce survey of like, where can we develop cooperatives that are responsive to the needs of our community, particularly in the Charleston and Kanawha County area. So some of those came up were manufacturing, healthcare, construction, and all sorts of entities. So that's good. Some of these examples are going to reflect that as well. So the Cooperative Home Care Associates is located in New York City, and it was founded in 1985, and now currently has over 2,300 worker-owner staff members. This is an interesting area of development, particularly in healthcare, and particularly for in-home healthcare workers, which tend to be paid lower, and overwhelmingly the majority of folks who are in-home healthcare workers are women of color and Black women. So the process of becoming a worker owner in that space is also providing more decision-making power, and also providing avenues to be making higher wages. One thing that that is also really unique about the CHCA is the lower rates of employee turnover, which is something that you also see in cooperative entities. Folks are bought into their organization, so they want to participate more, and you also have that ownership stake as well. The Cooperative Home Care Associates does not require member ownership of all staff members, but is an option for everyone, and has really affordable pathways to ownership as well. So over the course of 5 years, the buy-in stake is $1,000. Sorry, not $100,000. That would have been crazy. Is $1,000, and that comes in, you know, portions of a worker's check can be put toward that over the course of those 5 years. Ownership incentives also lead to integrity and quality of care. In-home healthcare and healthcare, particularly for our aging population, can tend to be rife with neglect and elder abuse, which this can, like cooperative entities, particularly in healthcare and home care, can also, again, provide that incentive to be providing quality care, not only to your clients, but because it's in response to a business that you're owning as well. The CHCA also provides initial free training for anyone that comes on as an initial worker, and they provide ongoing education on up-to-date in-home healthcare practices and protocols. And that's another part about cooperative entities that is huge, is that continuing education piece, not only about the cooperative movement and cooperatives themselves, but are we up to date on all the aspects that we need to be up to date on in our relevant industry. So education is huge. We can go to the next slide. Midas Construction is a really another interesting kind of example of what happened after the 2008 financial collapse or financial crisis in the United States. So they formed in 2008 as a collection of subcontractors, and taking a collective approach to construction, they're able to you know, keep the autonomy of being somewhat of an independent contractor, but having the ability to collectively go in on bids, to collectively pull together resources, such as like materials that they're needing, tools, anything like that. Another interesting thing about Midas Construction is that the worker owners have also established 100% covered health care through democratic workplace participation. So in worker, employee, and worker ownership structures, employees have a say in whether or not they have health care, or whether or not they want to put a portion of the funds or the revenue funds of that business into, and like Morgan was explaining earlier, do we expand it to another location? Do we invest in our educational programming? Do we invest in ourselves as well as another kind of component of that, which here the Midas Construction folks decided that healthcare was a crucial part of working and working in this entity, and something that was going to incentivize them even more in that process. We can move to the next slide. Poder Emma, which is Poder Emma Community Ownership. So this is an organization that's based in Asheville, North Carolina. They steward 3 cooperative networks, and they have 7 cooperative members in their cooperative housing and real estate management structure. You know, we have to talk about housing if we're going to be talking about workforce. Where are folks living when they're participating in an economy? And as many of you might know, Asheville over the course of several years has been rapidly growing and gentrifying. So Poder Emma and the folks that were living in this community decided that a mobile home housing cooperative was going to be an avenue for them to have more say in their housing, to become more secure in their housing as well. And over the course of several years, they've also developed out an ecosystem and a network of folks that are involved in Poder Emma, which include the several the housing cooperatives, the mobile home cooperatives, as well as a couple of collective real estate entities where they discuss whether or not purchasing land or purchasing homes for the cooperative is something that they want to do collectively. Poder Emma is also a part of a network that has a bookkeeping cooperative. Morgan was talking about P6, which is cooperation amongst cooperatives. We look to cooperatives first to see if there is a service that's being provided that we can engage in the cooperative economy. They have a language justice cooperative that they also work with. Most of the residents that reside within the Poder Emma cooperative housing, mobile home parks are immigrants, particularly from Central America. So they also have this language justice piece, and they also do indigenous language education amongst folks that live in their communities. So Poder Emma is a really great example of not only just having your own cooperative entity, but how do we connect to other co-ops and create this really robust ecosystem that provides services that we need in addition to the ownership within our own entities. We can go to the next co-op slide. Opportunity Threads is also another really awesome example of how a co-op entity has started and grown into building an ecosystem. So again, forming in 2008 as a response to the textile manufacturing jobs leaving North Carolina, not just after the financial crisis, but years leading up to that. We have a global race to the bottom in terms of maximizing profit in goods and services that we trade. And Morganton, North Carolina North Carolina in general has a very lively textile industry. So the Opportunity Threads started as a cut and sew worker cooperative in Morganton. It has since grown on into developing a network called the Industrial Commons, which connects textile cooperatives and textile small or worker democracy, worker-owned businesses, not necessarily co-ops, but other forms of worker-owned businesses into an ecosystem that is not only providing workplace democracy, but they're also focused on sustainable textile industry as well. So they have a returns, they do cut and sew, but they also have returns. They have textile recycling. So they have a number of various industries that are connected in the Industrial Commons and the Carolina textile industry. But that came from the growth of Opportunity Threads of being a successful co-op, and then thinking about how do we care for our community and how do we care for our cooperative ecosystem to build an economy that cares for us as well. It's now one of the most successful worker-owned and immigrant-led cooperatives in the United States as well. So co-ops are also an avenue for us to be thinking about economic justice, social justice, immigrant and refugee rights, racial justice, gender justice. So we have a lens of being able to address some of these issues that we see in our current economic landscape. We can head to the next slide. And just kind of off of those two slides there, talking about the importance of ecosystems and networks. Businesses, traditional businesses need an ecosystem, need ecosystems to thrive as well. So that's not, co-ops don't fall outside of that. And part of the reason why co-ops are so successful and can be so successful in navigating crises is because of this collective nature and thinking about how do we care for one another and how do we make sure that everyone is served in a time of crisis. So a couple of networks just to highlight are the Industrial Commons, which I touched on, which is Opportunity Threads is a part of that. Cooperation Jackson, which is in Jackson, Mississippi. They are in the process of developing cooperative ecosystems with childcare co-ops, housing co-ops, farmer co-ops, food co-ops, tech co-ops, all sorts of co-ops in every industry that you can think about, but really thinking about how to build a collective economy. We have Poder Emma, which is also a part of a collective economy, a cooperative economy, Co-op Cincy, which is in Cincinnati, Ohio, and PACA, which is the Philadelphia area of Cooperative Alliance. We also need to talk about financial capitalization. That is one of the huge challenges that co-ops face in the initial phases of cooperation or building these co-ops. How do we access capital that is patient capital, that is non-extractive capital, and that understands cooperative businesses and cooperative structures in order to fund it appropriately? So the Baltimore Roundtable for Economic Democracy, or BRED, is a loan fund in a financial network based out of Baltimore. The Seed Commons, which Mavery had mentioned earlier, which was a funder of Poder Emma, as well in the working world, which funded New Era Windows. But we also really need to be thinking about, how do we do financial capital building and financial co-op capital building as well. And a bit of reflecting of what was in the chat earlier is it's not only about finances, it's not only about networks, but it's also about policy. So, we see in these areas, in these examples where we have seen co-ops that I've just gone through, a lot of those places have very pro co-op policy at a state and a county level. So we really need to be thinking about, how does our state policy reflect the ability for us to even think about cooperative economies? How does our county policy look as well? And then was mentioned in the chat, West Virginia doesn't have necessarily very comprehensive cooperative policy, so that can deter folks from incorporating as co-ops or lead folks into incorporating as LLCs, which can be functioned as co-ops, but it's not ideal because we want to be creating this co-op economy. And that's all that I have. Again, all of this information is going to be in that resource page as well. So lots of videos and links there for anyone who's interested in learning more.
All right, thanks, Amanda. Appreciate that. So now we were going to also show a video regarding the Global Youth Forum, which is an opportunity for youth who develop cooperatives. But for now, suffice it to say that that is an initiative that we are going to be working on through the Financial Literacy Bootcamp to be getting a cohort of young people from our area ready to go attend this thing when things open back up at some point. So just opportunities out there to take these not only locally, but also learn on a global basis. So that was the video. We're not going to show it. So now it's time for my slides to, act up. Sorry about that. Now is time for some small group work. So we're gonna break out into some breakout groups to see if we can think about in our groups how to develop a youth-centered worker co-op here locally or wherever we can imagine. So if everybody would go to the shared Google folder, I will pull that up for everybody. Don't laugh at my desktop. If you go to the shared Google folder and click on group activity, you will see the prompting resource for the group work. So the key questions to consider are there. So think about everything you've learned today, and let's get in some small groups and see what we can come up with. How's that sound? So I'm going to try to keep you guys in the groups that that you selected. So I have to stop sharing here. What happened to my breakout rooms? Oh, there it goes. Sorry about that. So I'm gonna just kind of assign everybody, because we did kind of run out of we ran a little short on time. So I'm gonna assign people automatically. So there's going to be, I'll put 6 rooms.
There's only 15 of us now and 3.
Yeah, I'm
so maybe
gonna
4
yeah, I'll do
rooms.
4 rooms. Hold on. Yeah, I'll do 4 rooms. Okay. So, I'm gonna go ahead and open the rooms. You should be breaking out. Did everybody go?
No, there's a couple people still here.
Okay.
Francis, that person said they were stepping away.
Okay.
So they may or may not be at the computer. So it looks like it's just.
I'm here, but I'm not in and I'm Denise, but I'm not in, I didn't go anywhere, Mavery.
Okay. I'm gonna move you to room 3.
Okay.
In Zoom, there should be a little, like, in the bottom bar, there should be a breakout rooms thing. And if you just click that button, it'll show you your assignment and you can join.
Yeah, I'm just moving people.
I see that, but it's not activating when I push it. So that's why I was asking.
Let me see. Move to room 1.
Okay, Mavery, which room are you going into?
I don't know are all the.
I can't tell. I don't know. It assigned me to 4.
It assigned
I just
you to
wanted to make sure I wasn't in the same one as Amanda.
Amanda's in room 3, it looks like.
Okay. So you're gonna bring us back?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
even know which room people are in now.
It should be able to show you at least.
I see it, but I'm not sure if like I still see Francis, Olivia is still in here.
Yeah, I see that too. Francis isn't gonna be participating in the exercise.
Okay, well
but
well, it says Olivia is supposed to be in breakout room 3. Oh wait, her light's off.
yeah, and I don't know
And
what's
Denise is.
Denise.
Let me move you to another room and see. What happened? Did it work?
I was in a really functioning one and then I got removed from it.
Which room were you in?
I don't remember what I was first. I think I was in 3.
Okay, let me move you back.
And then
My
I was in a
bad.
group by myself. I was waiting for people. I was like, oh,
Okay, I think I just moved you back.
okay. There we go.
All right, I'm gonna go into room. Denise, you still in here?
I am. I'm still with you.
Let's try to go into room 1.
Okay.
You should be in room 1. Do you see a join in there?
I don't.
Okay, I'm gonna try to move you to room 2. See if it'll take you.
I'm not getting any queuing.
It should let you join.
It's not. That's okay. I'll get a blowdown from Amber. I actually have been able to participate more. I just had to do a couple little quick things at the beginning. Sorry about that.
It's all good. This was a test. So far, I think
It's
went
really
pretty.
interesting, and I appreciate all that you're doing. If you need to go to a room, I'll hang out here until you all come back.
I'm gonna go to room 2. Hello? Are we in here by ourselves?
We may be, because I think the other participants went to the main room because we were confused about whether there would be a facilitator.
I was coming in. Tell them
Okay,
come
right
back.
on.
Tell them
Okay.
come back. I'm gonna leave the room and I'm gonna come back in here.
Okay, Katie. Well, I never could get in, so.
Hey, who was that? Who was in room 2?
I was in room 2, and we lost facilitators. We didn't know what we
No,
were supposed to be doing.
I'm jumping in there with you guys right now.
Okay.
I was just trying to sort everybody out. It kind of went kind of crazy.
Well, we lost Amanda, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, go back in the room 2, and I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna be in there with you.
I can't do that. I think you have to move me.
Let me see. Katie.
And Denise said she never got moved to a room, so you might want to move her.
Well, I moved her, but her control isn't working. It says you're still in room 2, so you need to just click
Join
go
breakout
back in.
room. Okay, I found it.
Yeah, I'm gonna join the room. All
We're
right.
back.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
We should have explained that a little bit better. My bad. So, all right. So here's our task, right? So we want you to think about a youth-centered worker co-op. So, what kind of ideas do you guys have? Who would be if you were thinking about starting a youth-owned co-op? What would they be doing? Who would it be? No ideas? Hello? Hey,
Did you
sorry
hear
about
it?
that.
Oh.
My internet dropped for a second. So can you all think of anything? Like what would it be? If you could think of a business to start for young people in your community.
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is ask the young people what they want to do.
True. So right now we're imagining. So what do you think they might want to do?
Well, I don't know about like my specific
Should it be a
community.
nightmare if you wake her up? She won't.
I do know that there are some young people in the southern part of the state that, and there's like this whole movement around Edible Mountain with Grow Ohio Valley in the northern West
but I can't
Virginia
hear them either.
Panhandle. So I do know that there are young people working around food and agriculture and growing vegetables and then like selling those. So I see these like budding farmer entrepreneurs that are like sort of popping up. So I think that would be like maybe one opportunity for students to organize a cooperative model around food growing, marketing, and like keeping food local within a community.
Okay. So so how would these be? So be the ideal members would be youth what ages?
Well, I mean, it sort of depends. I've seen, I mean, I don't know about like legal structures, how youth, like how young can youth be? Like how old do you
It
have
could
to
be about
be?
like 16, like working age.
Okay.
So like say 16 to 25.
Yeah, I think that would be like good.
Um, and what needs do what problems would you be solving? You know, what
Well,
needs would be that like do these youth need jobs?
yeah, I'm sure they need jobs. They need maybe economic stability as they land on their feet away from their families if they're in that transitional age after high school. Um, they
What
need,
else?
access to basic life things that a job or financial stability would bring, like transportation and food and shelter and all those basic things, like just economic autonomy would be, I think, a major goal for the youth involved in the project.
Okay. Um, just overall economic autonomy, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of a real life example. It's not a cooperative, but Jenny Totten is in Southern West Virginia in McDowell County. And uh, she started out with like this group of middle schoolers who just wanted to make slime. And they were like making these like gallons and gallons of slime, like buying these industrial containers of glue. And they were
Mm-hmm.
selling so much slime at school that like the school board like shut them down. And then they had to sort of like they arranged to like move the operation across the street and like actually make it a legitimate business. And so it was just kind of funny. It was like definitely a youth-led entrepreneurial like adventure. And once they got it figured out, they stopped being in trouble. I mean, it wasn't a cooperative like in a very formal sense, but it was definitely youth-led and youth engaged.
So how many jobs do you think could be created?
Well, I mean, a full scale, like a full scale farming local food initiative. I mean, it wouldn't create many jobs at first because you just have to get everything to scale. So I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 or something. I don't think it would be many at first, but
Well, that's how most cooperatives actually start, likely with a small group who build it out, but make a structure for others to be able to join once
yeah.
they figured it out. Or you could do something depending on what partners you get involved to make it available. So if you identify that you want to recruit like, 20, 30 kids, then you just have to find the other resources to make that viable, you know.
Yeah.
So after 2 years, if everything goes right, after 2 years, what ideally would you, how many jobs would you need to get, or would you want to get?
I don't know. I'm like literally just making these numbers up because I don't know what the
Well,
business
this
like
is all.
plan
This is
would
all.
be.
Everything
It's all
starts
made
with a
up.
guess,
I
right?
mean, I think if you started, with like 3 to 5 in 2 years, it would be like really lovely to have like maybe 7 to 10.
Okay, 7 to 10, and this is how things start, right? You did it, then you figure out what resources you need for that 3 to 5. You know,
Yeah.
and you make it happen. Identify specifics of the community it would actually serve. So, what are some of the specifics of the community? Like, is it like a food desert or something like that?
Oh yeah, I would say food desert, high rural population, food insecurity, access to healthy foods is a major challenge. And then when you can get access to healthy foods, it's expensive. And
Expensive.
low socioeconomic, lot of low socioeconomic demographics and families in the community. So that's basically all of West Virginia outside of like the major cities.
Well, you provided some great answers there. In what industry? So this is going to operate in the food production,
Yeah, you
or
could say food production, and I mean they could, depending on how
spin it
networked
off
you got.
into
Yeah,
some kind of
retail.
retail. Yeah,
Yeah.
food production.
Hey, Mavery, it's Denise. I just got a little pop-up on my screen that said you have been invited to room 2.
It's okay. Well, we're gonna give you a little rundown. We'll give you a little rundown on where we're at. So, youth center cooperative. It will focus on ages 16 to 25. Provide jobs, economic stability, access to transportation, food, shelter. Overall economic autonomy, how many jobs projected at startup, 3 to 5, how many after 2 years, 7 to 10. Specific community, specifics about the community is a food desert, it's high rural population, food insecurity, expensive and low socioeconomic demographics. And then the industry, we were on the industry. What industry might this operate in? So the food production and retail sales. Is that where we were going,
Yeah.
Katie?
Yeah.
Sales, food trucks. And so what types of things do you think it might serve? Like what type, would they have like canned or jarred food, or,
Oh yeah, I definitely think you could have like value added products, maybe like in addition. Like, I mean, I think you have fresh products when you can, but then maybe value added products where feasible.
So is it like,
So something you can get now and something to have later. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Yeah.
we were saying like, if the kids are like growing food, then, it's very, like I'm thinking about the Turn Row Appalachian Farm Collective. And what it would look like if there was like a youth movement or like a local youth movement for food in a community. Could they work with a business to like, take all of the tomatoes that they picked and process them into like spaghetti sauces or salsa, or like, like what would like easy value added products potentially also be out of the food. So
I got you now. I was catching up. My brain got there.
No, it's okay.
No, this is good. This is exactly what this is meant to do. Like we already got the starts of a really good project right here. We need to summarize the ideal ecosystem for this. And you did mention that there might be multiple co-op models involved, right? Where one would be a producer, co-op, and then one would be like a worker co-op, like with the retail and stuff. So it's taking a look at the ecosystem mapping tool. So since I kind of know already how to use it, so what we're supposed to do is on the essential elements of the community. Are you able to see this ecosystem mapping worksheet?
Where is it?
Let me see if I can share my screen. Um, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
so it's in the
Oh,
Google the
ecosystem
share folder.
assessment tool. Okay.
Yeah, it's the ecosystem assessment tool. So the essential elements select the best description of our ecosystem. So this community that we're talking about, right? So would you say there are no cooperatives with veteran managers or people who have played management roles, less than 10 years of management experience in cooperatives in the area? Are there some people, or, like, how many people do you think um, involved with cooperatives are available in this community you're talking about?
Well, it's really hard, right? Because like West Virginia is one big community, so it's like, is it in like a discrete location? Then maybe zero. But I would call Amanda, and I would call Fritz Botner, and I would call Bradley Wilson, and so like I feel like you could just pick up the phone and call, be about 3 phone calls away from some expertise. It's kind of hard to answer.
So it would be like there's not really a bunch of cooperatives though, but there are people who develop them. So you'd say there's like probably 1 to 2 cooperatives in the area, or people who have played some management roles like Amanda, but there's not a whole bunch of cooperative activity though, right?
No, probably like not in southern West Virginia.
So you'd probably say like a 1.
Yeah.
And then member skills. So do these people you're talking about, do you think the skills of members are barely sufficient for the current work of worker cooperatives, or of the, what's the skill levels of the people that you think are out there to do this food service / retail business? Do you think it's
I mean, I would say that probably because of just like extension and FFA and like that's pretty networked. So I would say that I would at least give it a 1, maybe a 2.
okay? Let's put it 2. We're getting close to the end here. I'm actually going to break people out of this. We're not
Okay.
going to finish it. Um, and, and we're going to summarize. Who made it back? I see some people starting to come back. I see Rebecca. Hey, Amber.
Hi, Mavery.
Did I break y'all up when y'all was getting in real good?
First time. It's good. We have good.
Well, I figured we were getting close to the end. We got kind of off track and everything, but I think people got the gist of what we were doing. I mean, we came up with a pretty cool project in 10 minutes. I'm trying to wait for everybody to come back.
I think we lost 1 person out of our group in the midst of the group. I don't know if they had to go.
Yeah, it looks like he is no longer in the meeting, just
You're
generally.
talking about
So.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Yes.
He reached out to me and said that his computer crashed while trying to put on the video on Zoom. So a couple of folks may have been lost due to that.
Yeah. So let's do a couple report backs. So how was that? I know it was a little crazy, but we could get were people able to come up with some interesting projects?
can talk on behalf of our group, if Kim and Foster don't mind. I'm a talker. So we just had a good conversation about using like the existing simulated workplace infrastructure that's taking place in all the high schools across the state to build out co-ops with students, and have them really, within the simulated workplaces, they're unable to actually take the profits. They have to go back into the school, but maybe they could create co-ops on their own with the skills they're learning, and also simultaneously build their own profits and understanding of business. So we had a really good conversation about that. We'll probably follow up outside of this workshop too.
Nice, that's good.
Is it possible in that model for to maybe not all profits go back into the school, but go back into, maybe funding the future co-op or their business interest out of that, so that there's kind of a portion or whatnot based on the ownership of the idea or concept between the group that comes together?
It's tough from what I understand of the landscape is some of the districts just have different policies on where funding can go. And so if there's not like a consistent across all school districts, how the allocation of funds can be made in simulated workplaces. So it would probably, Kim, I might ask you to speak to this, but I would think it would be easier for all the funding for co-ops to be external from the school funds, correct? Okay, yeah.
Interesting. I love it. That was the purpose of this. Did you get down to the point of thinking about who an ideal steering committee might be?
No. We got to conceptualization, but it was a good conceptualization combo.
Well, let's think about that. In forming this thing, what might a good steering committee look like? Who might be on there?
I think we'd have to include probably somebody from the CTE department at the state level, just so that they understand kind of the purpose of that. And then local businesses would be really important to help provide some direct mentoring in those specific industries, just as an immediate thought. And then I think Kim would be a great resource, and people in similar positions that are working on some of those more, the educational practices behind what we're trying to teach.
What about the actual people doing that are going to ultimately be owning the co-op? Shouldn't the students be on that steering committee as well?
Yeah, I thought that was inevitable.
Okay. We're just making sure. Anybody else want to report back on the idea they came up with?
Mavery, hey, it's Larry. As you know, we're going to start talking about construction and workforce next week. And when the presentation about Metis construction intrigued me, that one of the outcomes might be exploring the creation of a construction co-op down the road. So
now I do my little dance in my seat. No, that's like I said, man. This is so. In how far did you get with that idea? Did you think about some people besides the group? Larry, you already are applying a lot of cooperative principles, right? With the way you set up the workforce development committee. We kind of meet and train each other or speak about things that are going on. But you're using your office and resources of the city to get other people that have direct connections to the community, like meeting and thinking about things to work together. That's pretty cooperative if you think about it,
Yep.
And who knows, something like this construction co-op might come out of that. You never know.
Another Mavery might be in-home healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
There are needs in this community as they are in all the other communities, and this is an intriguing idea. And I've already reached out to a couple people about potentially getting some seed funding for you, man. So I'm working for you.
Not me. Like, this is for the community, right? Like, this was about people coming up with ideas based on information that is out there and presented to you, and the fact that like we have definitely a specific focus on teaching cooperative economics, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But this is more about just putting it out there that, like, we all can think cooperatively. Does anybody else want to report back? Because Tracy, are you in here? Did I lose you? Tracy Phillips?
Yeah,
And
it's
you-
three. It's 3 on the dot. So I think, yeah, let's.
Yeah. Yeah, it is 3 on the dot. So we're gonna. That was good. Thank you. Even through the chaos, we ended up getting some good work out of that. So I thought Tracy Phillips, I saw her pop in, but we may have lost her in the chaos of the breakout rooms. Tracy, are you here? I don't see
see
her.
her signed in.
Well, what she was going to say is Tracy is the founder of Fun Fitness Foundation, and she's also one of the collaborators with the Financial Literacy Bootcamp, and through the HHOMA grant this year, we have an initiative called Collective Impact, and we are organizing the community to take a field trip to, if you like learning about cooperatives today, then you can fill out the interest form that is located in your resource link from the shared Google folder, and indicate whether or not you want to come on this trip with us to Evergreen, Ohio, to Evergreen Cooperatives in Ohio. We have limited capacity, so we're looking for at least 10 youth ages 12 to 18, and 5 community members who, whether they're individuals or organizations that would be interested in either help in coming or either helping us to plan that trip. We're hoping to do the trip by the end of the year, but right now we're just collecting general interest. Again, looking for 10 young people ages 12 to 18 and 5 community members, either individuals or organizations. So that's Collective Impact. And then we're going to pass it to Morgan or Amber for a little update.
Yeah, I'll just talk really quickly. The Freedom Project is an initiative. You're good. Is an initiative we've been partnering on with Mavery and Tracy at the Fun Fitness Foundation and EntreEd to work on a kind of collaborative approach to cooperative and entrepreneurship development. So we're looking at some K-12 programming around entrepreneurial thinking, around financial literacy, and cooperative classrooms by partnering students with business members of the community, and then a cooperative communities online training for individuals in some of the communities we're targeting to learn how to launch their own cooperatives. And so it's kind of a comprehensive, from education to the economy approach to professional development and economic development with entrepreneurship and cooperatives.
Yeah, and a key point here is that nothing is set in stone. So we're seeking people, collaborators and partners to work and help with developing all of that out. So again, if you're interested in joining us on the Freedom Project, then there is an interest form also in your resource link, in your resource link that is in the shared Google folder that everybody got. Amanda, Morgan, did you all have anything you wanted to highlight? Any key questions for us as the presenters? Anybody have any questions?
Just thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. This was a really great experience, and it's great to see so many different faces coming together.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to my co-presenters in Mavery for organizing. I really appreciate it. And for everyone that was on this call today, those of us who are still here and those of us who were kicked out or had to leave, but just thank you so much for everyone. And I just also want to say too, I feel like I say this all the time, but like West Virginia is always caught up in a conversation around just transitions, particularly when we're talking about environmentalism, when we're talking about shifting away from extractive coal industries. But in my perspective, it's not just, a just transition, in the way that it's framed isn't just about how we interact with the environment and extractive industries on the landscape, but what does a just transition look like for our economy as a whole? And I believe that collectives and co-ops are one avenue to get there. But I just, again, want to thank you all for that. And I'm excited to be on this journey towards a truly just transition, hopefully with you all in the future. So thank you.
There's Tracy right there. Can I let Tracy say hi? Cause she, so, can you
Did I
unmute
miss my
Tracy?
part? Sure, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Did I miss my part?
Yeah, I said it for you, but just still say hi. Just say hi and everything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy with Fun Fitness Kids Club and the Fun Fitness Foundation. And for those of you that don't know, Fun Fitness Kids Club is a small business here in West Virginia, and we focus on decreasing the obesity rate in the state. And one of the things that we ventured to do is to create the Fun Fitness Foundation to help our efforts throughout the state to decrease obesity by creating fun fitness activities. So we've been able to partner with the Financial Literacy Boot Camp. We've received some grant funding, try this West Virginia grant funding, and as Mavery has probably already mentioned, the Herbert Henderson Office of Minority Affairs Collective Impact Initiative. So I just want to say that I'm very happy to be a part of this. I'm very excited for all the work that we're doing. Thank you all for being a part of the team, and I'm just excited and ready for where this can go and where positive things we can do for the youth in our community.
Yeah. Tell them to go fill out that survey
There
in
we
the
go.
registration link form. It's all in your resource packet.
Yes.
The two for the Freedom Project and for Collective Impact to go on this field trip. Those links are it's at the very top of the resource package. Thank you, Tracy. Anybody else got any closing remarks or anything? We're about 8 minutes over, so I want to be respectful of people's time, but I also want to give y'all a chance to speak out and comment on what you've learned today.
Thank you for organizing this. I took a whole bunch of notes, and it was very informative and something I hadn't thought about. You brought a new idea to my attention, and that's always good. Thank you.
I wanted to say that I connected with Amber, and we seem to have a little bit of a plan. She's working on some things with the State Department, and Kanawha County Schools is working on that co-op, apprenticeship, internships. And so we're going to connect after this and try to move forward on a way that this could all be incorporated back into the school to increase awareness. Is that basically, Amber, what you're thinking?
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be a good connection to make.
Anybody else?
Mavery, and you all said you're going to share a resource page, or we already have that in the Google Docs.
It's in the Google shared folder. There's a Google document with resource links in there.
All right, I got kicked out of all that, and I don't want to go back in because
I'll send it to you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I'll send it to you.
My equipment is getting old, as well as I.
Okay. If anybody wants to doesn't have access or wants the information to the resource links, just email me, maverydaviscpa@gmail.com, and come to the Financial Literacy Bootcamp page. You can find me. Message somebody in the group that was in here. We'll get it to you. With that, I think we're done. I appreciate everybody and all their hard work for helping to put this together. I appreciate y'all for sitting through 2 hours of me and other people talking about cooperatives. And I appreciate you getting your hands dirty and coming back with some really awesome feedback, and more importantly, turning a meeting into action. I heard a lot of people talking about action, and ultimately, that was my goal, was that this turned into action and not just another workshop to think about, but something we can take and move and leave out of here moving forward with activity. So I'm out of here. Until next time, this has been the Financial Literacy Boot Camp. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.